Did Buddha really teach Mahayana and Vajrayana Buddhism? Or were these later developments? Today we are exploring one of the most fascinating questions in Buddhist history. We will uncover the origin of Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, the truth about the Lotus Sutra, emptiness, Tantra, the difference between Buddha and Bodhisattva, what Buddha actually taught, why Buddhism is split into different branches, how each school explains Buddhism differently, and how Buddhism evolved around 2500 years. We'll also explore what makes Buddhism different from many other religions and why many people believe Buddhism is surprisingly close to modern philosophy and modern science, modern psychologies, etc. So let's begin. After the death of Gautama Buddha around the 5th century BCE, his teachings were preserved orally by monks. These teachings were later collected into the famous Tripitaka, also called the Tipitaka, meaning the three baskets. The three parts were Vinaya Pitaka, monastic rules, Sutta Pitaka, Buddha's discourses, Abhidhamma Pitaka, philosophical analysis. These early teachings form the foundations of Buddhism. In the earliest texts, Buddha mainly taught suffering exists, attachment causes suffering, everything is impermanent, no permanent self exists, mindfulness purifies the mind, and liberations from suffering is possible. His teachings or his approach was deeply practical. He focused less on worship and more on understanding the mind and ending suffering through wisdom, meditations, and ethical living. Today, the traditions most closely connected to these early scriptures is called Theravada Buddhism. Theravada means the teaching of our elders or earlier. It is strongest in Sri Lanka, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia. Theravada explains Buddhism mainly as a path of personal transformation through meditation, morality, mindfulness, renunciations, and wisdom. Its goal is nirvana, the ending of greed, hatred, and delusion. Theravada focuses heavily on meditation, ethical discipline, mindfulness, renunciation, and personal liberation from suffering. Its ideal figure is the Arhat, someone who destroys greed, hatred, and delusions and reaches nirvana. Now, distinct features of Theravada include reliance on the Pali Canon, simpler spiritual structure, rituals structures, strong monastic traditions, early Buddhist meditations methods, and focus on individual awakening. Theravada generally sees Buddha mainly as a fully awakening human teacher. Yes. Now, despite what some people think, Theravada absolutely teaches compassion. The Buddha in early texts repeatedly taught loving kindness, compassion, generosity, and non harming. Theravada believes if you purify your own mind deeply, you naturally become beneficial to others. But Buddhism did not remain exactly the same. As Buddhism spread across centuries, cultures, and regions, different monks and philosophers began emphasizing different aspects of the teachings. Some wanted to preserve the earliest teachings strictly, others expanded ideas about compassion, Buddhahood, and philosophy, yet others later developed esoteric yoga and tantric methods. Several centuries after Buddha's death, new Buddhist movements began appearing in India. One of them became known as Mahayana Buddhism, very popular nowadays. The word Mahayana means the great vehicle. Why? Because it emphasizes helping all beings reach enlightenment, not just oneself. Instead of only becoming an arhat, Mahayana promoted the ideal of the Bodhisattva, a compassionate being who delays final nirvana in order to help all living beings to awaken. This became one of the biggest differences between Theravada and Mahayana Buddhism. And now, who is Buddha? A Buddha is a fully awakened being who completely realizes enlightenment. And who is Bodhisattva? A Bodhisattva is someone dedicated to attaining enlightenment while also helping liberate all beings from suffering. So this is the main differences between Buddha and Bodhisattva. Now here comes the big question. Did Buddha actually teach Mahayana? Historically, most scholars believe the earliest Mahayana sutras appeared around 300 to 500 years after Buddha. Texts such as the Lotus Sutra, Heart Sutra, and Diamond Sutra were likely composed by Mahayana Buddhist communities in India. Historically, scholars do not believe Buddha literally spoke these texts word for word. But Mahayana Buddhists believe Buddha taught deeper teachings to advance disciples and that these teachings were revealed later when humanity was ready. One of the most influential Mahayana texts is the Lotus Sutra. The Lotus Sutra teaches ideas such as universal Buddhahood, skillful means, compassion, and the idea that all beings can ultimately become enlightened or Buddha. Now let's understand what makes Mahayana distinct. Mahayana explains Buddhism not only as personal liberation but as universal liberations through wisdom and compassion. Distinct Mahayana features include the Bodhisattva ideal, universal compassion, celestial Buddha and Bodhisattva, deeper philosophical systems, devotional practices, and large new scriptures. Mahayana also developed powerful philosophical ideas like sunyata, or emptiness. This does not mean nothing exists. It simply means nothing exists independently or permanently. Everything arises through causes and conditions. Early Buddhist teachings already contain ideas about impermanence and non-self, but the philosopher Nagarjuna around the 2nd century CE developed the philosophy of emptiness, mostly deeply through the Madhyamaka school. Another school called Yogacara explored consciousness and the nature of mind. Mahayana also presents Buddha in a much more cosmic way, not only as a historical teacher but as an enlightened reality beyond ordinary understanding. This is why Mahayana Buddhism became very influential in China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, and later Tibet. Then Buddhism evolved even further. Around the 6th to 8th century CE, Vajrayana Buddhism began developing in India. Vajrayana means the diamond vehicle. It is also called Tantric Buddhism. Historically, scholars see Vajrayana as developing from Mahayana Buddhism combined with Indian Tantric traditions. Vajrayana accepted Mahayana teachings like compassion, emptiness, and the Bodhisattva path, but added powerful tantric methods. Tantric Buddhism. These tantric Buddhisms developed mainly through Indian Buddhist masters and later flourished strongly in Tibet. Distinct Vajrayana features include mantras, mandalas, deity visualizations, guru-disciple initiations, ritual practices, subtle body yogas, and esoteric meditation systems. Unlike Theravada's simpler structure or Mahayana's broader philosophical focus, Vajrayana emphasized transformation. Instead of simply rejecting difficult emotions, Vajrayana attempts to transform desire, anger, and ignorance into wisdom itself. Vajrayana also claims enlightenment can potentially be achieved more faster even within one lifetime. One of the most important Vajrayana masters was Padmasambhava, also called Guru Rinpoche, who helped establish Buddhism in Tibet. Tibetan Buddhism's preserved teachings mainly in two collections, the Kangyur and the Tengyur. The Kangyur contains teachings considered the words of Buddha. The Tengyur contains commentaries by later masters. So today, Buddhism is generally grouped into three major branches. Theravada focuses on early teachings and personal liberation. Mahayana, which focused on universal compassion and the Bodhisattva ideal. Lastly, Vajrayana, which focused on tantric transformations and rapid awakening. Yet despite their differences, all three traditions still share core Buddhist teachings. Suffering exists. Attachment causes suffering. Everything changes. No permanent self exists. And liberation is possible. Now another fascinating question arises. What makes Buddhism different from many other religions? Unlike many other religions or traditions, Buddhism often focuses less on belief in the Creator God and more on direct experience, observations of the mind, meditations, and personal investigations. Many Buddhist teachings encourage questionings and self-explorations rather than blind belief. This is one reason Buddhism is much compared with modern psychology and sciences. Modern Neuroscience and psychology have shown growing interest in practices like mindfulness, meditations, compassion training, and mental awareness. Of course, not every supernatural or cosmological Buddhist belief is scientifically proven. But among world religions, Buddhism is often considered one of the closest to scientific inquiry because of its focus on casualties, impermanence, mental observations, and direct experience. In the end, Buddhism evolved across the centuries, cultures, philosophies, and spiritual needs. Some traditions stayed closer to the earliest forms, others expanded into cosmic philosophy and Tantra, but all of them were searching for the same thing: freedom from suffering and awakening of the mind. And perhaps that is the deepest connections between all schools of Buddhisms. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe and comment which spiritual or philosophical topic you want next.